Right, morning again. I think we are ready to start now. I'll just start with some introduction and then Karen will take over from there. Thank you all for attending this morning on a Saturday. I know most of us Saturday mornings very precious to us and the families. So thank you for taking time to be here. This session for today is just for Karen to take us through, to tell us what recognition of prior learning is, how we can use it, or you can use your experience, your learning through the years towards acquiring a Bachelor of Business Administration, and then we'll take us through the process as well, what the process at Chato we are going to follow. Yeah, and then we're also here to answer any questions that you might be having and also to continue with this conversation after this session. With us to take us through this process is Dr. Karen Dela. I think she is known around the RPL, both locally and internationally. She was part of the team that developed the RPL policy for South Africa and consulted widely on RPL. So in our hands, we have a very experienced practitioner and researcher into the field. So that's why she's here. And at Chato, we are privileged to have her as one of us. And again, Karen is also Chato Business College Academic Director. And yeah, so she will be with us for the next 1 hour to tell us what is RPL, how can we use RPL, our knowledge acquired towards a qualification, and then the process to follow thereof. Okay, over to you, Karen.
Perfect. I'm hoping that everyone can see that. Can you?
Yes, and you sound a bit better too.
Okay, well then that's good. I'm just going to scrap the second screen and stop trying to be clever. Right, okay. So I started off by saying, and I think I got interrupted by the internet, that the CHE gives us two different types of RPL. So we've got RPL for exemption, which means if you have been working in recognition of in human resources, for example, and you've got a wealth of experience, you can apply to be RPL for the HR module, and then you don't need to do it. The other type of RPL is RPL for access for people who don't meet the normal entry requirements. I'm mainly going to be focusing on RPL for exemption here though, because that I think is what most people are interested in. But we can certainly talk about RPL, the other kind of RPL. Right, so what is RPL for exemption? Now, basically recognition of prior learning tells us, and it assumes, that learning occurs in all different kinds of ways. So as we go through our daily life, our daily activities, so we are learning in all sorts of environments, not just in the workplace, but also we are learning in our day-to-day lives as we interact with people, as we struggle with the technology like I did this morning. We also learn in our families, and there have been some really interesting RPL case studies coming out of Europe, where women who have never worked a day in their lives in the offices have been able to use their lifelong learning gained from running a family and looking after children and planning menus to RPL successfully for a general management qualification. So recognition of prior learning recognizes absolutely that RPL happens in all kinds of environments. It doesn't only happen in a formal classroom. And because of that, we need a mechanism in education to help people unpack and process what it is they know and can do. And if you're able to successfully unpack it in such a way, and we can match it to the requirements or what we call the learning outcomes of a qualification, then we're able to exempt you for that. So what you would need to do is package your evidence. We would match it to the learning outcomes of the qualification with you, and this would enable you to complete your degree in a far shorter period than is normally expected. So your typical undergraduate degree takes somebody 3 years if they're studying full-time. It can take 4.5 years if you're studying part-time. So through the recognition of prior learning process, you can shorten the time to get the degree considerably. Now, I mentioned, and I'm not sure if you heard me because I was cut off a little, but the Council on Higher Education does give us a policy and a process to follow for recognition of prior learning. And they have particular rules there. The two that I just want to highlight, because it's key for what it is that we're doing, is the CHE tells us that if we do recognition of prior learning for 1 subject or 3 subjects or even 10 subjects, that no credits are actually awarded. Now, typically, a degree is 360 credits. So if you RPL for 50% of it, which the policy also tells us is absolutely possible, then you could graduate with the full degree, but with 180 credits, not the 360. So those are the two things that are important. There are no credits that are awarded to the subjects that you complete through RPL, and that no more than 50% of the degree can be achieved through recognition of prior learning. So those are the key rules that we need to keep in mind. We as a provider also have different rules when it comes to recognition of prior learning. We've said that you should be at least 25 years old. And this is because we want people to have a maximum opportunity to be able to RPL as many subjects as possible. And typically people who are younger, and I know it's a judgment, but typically people who are younger don't have sufficient working experience to be able to successfully RPL a number of RPL subjects. Accompanying with that should be at least 5 years of working experience, but it could also be volunteering experience. There are some very interesting case studies in Europe with people who have gained many, many credits towards tertiary qualifications using their volunteering work experience as the experience for the basis of that. For students that are currently enrolled with us, you can't apply for RPL for a subject that's been failed in the past. So if you have attempted it and failed it, then you do need to complete it in the normal way. We recommend that people would start with RPL once they're accepted onto the degree program. So we're envisaging that the first trimester that you have with Chartwell Business College would be your RPL trimester. And that would then allow you to attempt RPL for all the subjects that you feel ready to RPL, and then you can slot into normal learning from that point onwards. But it's not essential. We do have people who start with normal learning, pick up emotional intelligence, whatever subjects they feel they want to do first, and then do RPL later on in the process. So it certainly isn't a hard and fast rule. Also, no more than 50% of the BBA can be awarded through exemptions, and you have to be an enrolled student to actually start the RPL process. And as I unpack the process for you, I think the reason for that will become clearer. So this is the process. The first step is that you need to make sure you meet the entry requirements. However, as I've already said, you can RPL for access, and that would entitle you to be on the BBA program. So you would enroll. You would pay the admin fee and get accepted and get a student number in exactly the same way as normal students do. You would then attend a How RPL Works session, which is an in-depth session, which shows you how the process will unfold. And we already start to explore some of the naturally occurring evidence that you may have that you could submit for your RPL evidence. You would then apply for RPL using the application form. And from there, we would have a one-on-one interview. We're calling it a competency dialogue. And it's an interview, it's structured. I'll tell you which questions I'm going to be asking you, and I'll tell you why I'm going to be asking you those questions. And over a period of about an hour, 90 minutes, we will unpack what you not only do, because that's descriptive, but also what you know that underpins what you do. In other words, we're not just looking at a job description, we're looking at the knowledge and the skill that you have that makes it possible to do what you do in the workplace. That interview will then be reviewed by the academic board at Chartwell, and it's their recommendation from that to either proceed or not proceed with the RPL process. You would then enroll for the RPL for exemption subject, which is 1 trimester long. During that 1 trimester, we are going to work together to build critical reasoning, critical understanding. We're going to drill down deep into all of the learning outcomes of the qualification of the subjects that you feel ready to RPL. And we're going to prepare you to a point where you know what evidence needs to be submitted for each of the subjects that you've decided to challenge for. And that's the terminology we're using. You're not necessarily just going to RPL for a subject. You're going to challenge for an exemption in the subjects that you want to challenge for. You will then complete a portfolio of evidence. Now, the portfolio of evidence will be for one of the 4 maps. So the BBA, Chartwell BBA, has got 4 underpinning golden themes. These are people, processes, practices, and systems. And you will do a portfolio of evidence for all of the people subjects, all of the process subjects, all of the practice subjects, or all of the system subjects. So if you are challenging for 18 subjects, it's not that you're going to be doing 18 different portfolios of evidence. You'll be doing 4 that interlink with the subjects in them. Once you've submitted your portfolio or portfolios, it could be that the RPL advisor recommends another interview just to probe areas where the academic board feels they need more information. And the output of all of that would be either yes, subject exemption is granted, or no, subject exemption is not granted. And as with all of these processes, you would obviously have a chance to appeal if that's what you wanted to do. So that's the high level process. So I think you can see from this that it really involves a trimester of work, but the output of that trimester would be the portfolios of evidence that could then potentially earn you up to 50% of the degree as exempt. So what will you do on that RPL trimester? So it'll be run through the Chartwell Learning Management System. It'll be 1 trimester in duration, which is roughly 13 weeks. And it's designed, the curriculum is designed to develop critical reasoning and academic insight, and to build your academic writing skills to a point where you are able to both reflect on the learning outcomes and link these practically to what you know and what you do. As I said, it's linked to the golden thread that runs through the Chartwell BBA, which is MAPS, the management and administration of people, processes, practices, and systems. So each subject will have a list of outcomes, and you will be guided during the trimester as to what evidence you should submit in order to be found exempt for that subject. And I said the RPL advisor will guide you, and you'll be guided either one-on-one, depending if you're just the person on your own who wants to challenge for a particular subject, or if there are a few people who want to challenge for the same subject, say human resources, then the RPL advisor will work with you in those small groups to identify the evidence that is suitable. Once you've submitted your portfolio, you may then need to do either a presentation or an additional interview just to convince the faculty that your claim is valid. So that's how we plan to roll out the RPL for the BBA degree. Your output then would be a single admin section for all of the portfolios, and then per subject, you would submit your evidence. And if you're wondering what kind of evidence that might be, it would be things like business awards that you may have achieved. It could be your really wonderful LinkedIn profile like Nolene's. It could be short course certificates or transcripts that you may already have done. It could be testimonials from managers or business leaders or possibly church leaders, other references that you've acquired over the years. It could be a project that you're going to do because you don't have any suitable naturally occurring evidence. So any of these things or all of these things could be put together in your portfolio to actually challenge for exemption for the subject. The subject and outlines are all in the RPL and CAT guide. So on our website, we do have a recognition of prior learning and credit accumulation guide. And in there is a brief summary of each of the subjects. So that's something that we would start with. We would go through that, we would unpack what each subject has and help you identify what you know and do in relation to those outcomes. The forms are also in the guide, but they're also on the website, so different people like to fill them in different ways. And then I've also included the competency interview guide. So that's the first step in the RPL process, if you remember when I had that high-level diagram up. So that first interview is structured and designed for the RPL advisor so that we can really unpack what competencies and knowledge and skills you have already. And based on that, we'll pretty much be able to give you a good recommendation of which subjects we feel you'd be best suited to be able to RPL fairly quickly. Okay, so credit, I didn't mention it. Well, I did mention it, but I might have been offline at the time. Credit accumulation and transfer is similar to recognition of prior learning in that it allows you to transfer exemptions across to the BBA degree. But credit accumulation and transfer is more for credits that you've already earned formally. So if, for example, you started at UNISA and you did 5 or 6 subjects and you were formally assessed and you passed them and you've got a transcript, you don't need to RPL for those same subjects again. You just submit that transcript and you get credit exemptions in the BBA degree if there are similar subjects in the degree with similar credit values, that is. So recognition of prior learning and credit accumulation and transfer are two sides of the lifelong learning coin, and they work together as a mechanism to enable you to get exemptions towards a tertiary qualification. We're planning to start the first RPL rollout in the next trimester, which is going to start in May. So that's when we'll have the first cohort of RPL candidates that are going to challenge for exemptions through this RPL process. Okay, just from a pricing point of view, if you are looking to use RPL for access to the qualification, then that costs 2,000 Rand. The RPL for exemption application fee is 800 Rand when you submit the form and when you book that competency dialogue, which, as I said, would be 60 to 90 minutes long. And then the RPL for exemption trimester for the subject is the standard subject fee at 3,000. And the RPL for exemption per subject is payable at 2,000 Rand per subject. So we'll chat about that during the trimester, and at the end of the trimester, you'll have a very, very strong idea of which subjects it is that you can challenge for. So RPL as a process is fairly commonplace in the vocational qualifications. However, its application is not widely used in higher education for exemption in this way, despite the fact that the legislation and the regulations allow for it. So I'm really hoping that through introducing this process, we're going to be able to make the access to earning a higher education qualification more attainable for many people, so that you don't have to waste time doing subjects where you really, really do feel that you have all the knowledge and the understanding and the competency already. So I'm going to turn my camera on and turn over the floor for some questions. Any questions from anybody? There must be many.
Yeah, you can also type your questions on the comment section, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, actually, I just got in a bit late. I had some issues setting up. I don't know if you can hear me clearly.
Yes, I can.
Well, I caught in the middle of your conversation. I wanted to know, you said it's going to be starting in the next trimester?
Correct.
Okay. And what would be the requirements apart from your experience? Your job experience?
So job experience is the basis for it, but there is a process.
Okay.
So the process would start with an application and a competency interview. And after that, you would attend one trimester where we developed critical reasoning skills unpacked all of the learning outcomes of the subjects that you want to challenge for, and then guided you to complete a portfolio of evidence for the subjects that you want to challenge for.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget, you say, would credits from another training provider not be part of the 50% for RPL? Yes, it would. So if you, and I'll use the UNISA example again, if you had completed 5 subjects at UNISA, and they were subjects that matched the receiving higher education provider's degree, in this case, Charter Business College, then yes, those would be 5 of your subjects that would qualify for exemption. So you can only earn 50% of the qualification through either RPL or CAT. The balance of the 50% has to be awarded and studied in the normal way by the institution that confers the qualification. Laletu, I see your hand is up. Laletu, maybe you could type your question. I can see your hand.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Oh, okay. I was muted. I didn't realize. Okay, my question. Okay, I just want to find out because I do want to enroll for this course, but I want to find because I just came in late, so I'm not sure what was covered before I was connected. Now, when do we begin for registration? Do we wait until May, or do we perhaps engage with the college prior to like May, so that perhaps we can get some more insights and start the process?
I would recommend that you start engaging as soon as possible so that you can manage all of that process, get familiar with the learning management system, and already start. You would have the competency interview by then early. I'd like to do the competency interviews in April so that we can already start to guide you as to which subjects you would be able to RPL through this process.
Okay. Will that be online or will have to visit? Of course, I'm in Cape Town, so I'm not sure where offices are.
Yeah, it's online. We're an online provider, so all of your learning will be online. Everything doesn't matter where you are. We've got students in Vietnam and America, and well, Simon knows where they all are, but lots of different places.
Yeah, Nigeria. SA was just asking a question all the way from Nigeria. Yeah, so
there you go.
USA.
There you go.
Okay, I understand.
Perfect, thank you. So Laletu, you can put your hand down.
How do I do that?
Yeah, click on the same button that you used to put it back up.
The one that says raise your hand.
Yeah, the same one.
Is it down?
No.
You put it back now.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions from anybody? Do you think that this is a process that would work for you, for example?
Morning, Corinne.
Morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. So here's my challenge is I have misplaced my matric certificate. So would that hinder my process?
No, because assuming that you're over 25, we'll just go through, then we'll just go through a quick RPL for access process.
Okay, no, I'm just double checking, and it's probably questions that people are wondering about and going, well, I can't apply because I see I did the application process now while you were busy talking, so that I could actually just also see what kind of questions are asked. And I see that there's quite a bit of information as well as an essay to kind of motivate why I need to be talking to you. But I didn't complete the essay, I'll send it separately.
Okay, well, I would be impressed if you did complete it in these couple of minutes, Marlene.
Yes, no, I didn't. But for me, I think, you know, just so that everyone else also understands that there is a you know, when you're going through the online application, just make sure that you're sitting in a quiet spot and that you have an hour, that there's an application for a essay that you need to motivate why you need to do the course.
And the objective of that is more just to see how well you write. We find that a lot of students get frustrated because they can't articulate their research in a written format. So at least if we know where people are coming from, we can start to build in support for that early on in the process, rather than find out towards the end.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Nolene. Tracy, what's the time frame per subject for the RPL process? 1 month to complete, 6 weeks. Okay, so the RPL course, the trimester, is 13 weeks long. And in those 13 weeks, you will break the back, if not complete, a lot of the portfolio for your RPL process. So it could be that you would complete all of it in those 13 weeks. Or it could be that you still want to collect a little bit of extra information, and there may be one or more weeks after that. But ideally, the process is designed so that you complete the RPL in those 13 weeks. So that you can then go on to, you know, the learning in the other subjects from the following trimester. Cool. Any other questions or observations, such as Nolene shared with us, from anybody?
I have a question, but it's not related to the degree, and maybe it's something we can chat about at a later stage. I just want to find out, you know, our business model, we have these franchisees and they are qualified in many ways just for short courses, multiple short courses. Is there any way that accumulatively they could be RPL'd and that could then represent a certificate or a diploma or a degree?
So it's a common question. Recognition of prior learning, and it's the distinction between recognition of prior learning and credit accumulation and transfer. So credit accumulation and transfer more looks at things that have already been learned and already assessed formally. So are these qualifications that they have done, are they unit standard based? Are they formal qualifications that have been assessed, or are they non-formal?
In most instances, the people would have acquired courses prior to the whole SACWIP system being implemented. So it would be a combination of short courses, some of which were maybe acquired 20 or 30 years ago.
So those that haven't been formally assessed are part of the RPL process. So there still needs to be an assessment that makes them credible, gives them credits. Those that have been formally assessed can possibly be transferred into another qualification through the credit accumulation and transfer process. But anything that hasn't been formally assessed has to be formally assessed, and that's the RPL process. Okay,
that's great to hear. Where would I go to get more information on that so that we can advise them accordingly?
So let you and I chat. So it'll be interesting to see what kinds of qualifications they've done and what the target is. So it's always, RPL has really 2 points. What have I done? Where is my experience? And so what? What do I want to gain from it? Is it a BBA degree? Is it a certificate in generic management? Anything like that. So there's the 2 bits that somebody has to know. What have I got? And so what? Where am I going with it?
Okay, that's fantastic. So I just want to say thank you. It's been very, very interesting. Penny's sitting in the background. She just wants to say hi.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Penny. You guys are in Mauritius. So is Kailash. I'm very jealous.
So from our side, thank you so much. We'll continue listening and then we'll chat later, Cora.
Bridget, you say, how old can the RPL experience evidence be? So, you know, typically we would say not more than 5 or 6 years, but it does depend on the subject. So if you're looking at our digital marketing subject, for instance, I think anything that you did 5 years ago is probably no longer valid evidence. If you looked at something like human resources, it could probably still be valid, but except for the legislation. So maybe you would need to brush up on the legislation. But besides that, it would probably be fine. So we do look at each subject. We do look at the nature of the evidence before deciding if it is valid or if it isn't valid. I'd rather do that than putting a peg in the sand and say, you know, it can't be older than 5 years, because I think then we lose the richness of what we've learned and what we've achieved in all those years. Violin, in the event that one is exempted for 50% of the degree, what is the time frame for completing the formal remaining modules? Is there a cost per module that one is exempted for? So there's a cost for the RPL trimester, which is the 3,000 Rand. It's the normal cost for one of our subjects. And then for every subject that you challenge, there's 2,000 Rand fee. The remaining subjects would be completed in the normal way. And typically people will take 2 or 3 subjects per trimester. We try and advise that you don't take more than that. However, if one is not working, one could take more than that because you would have the time. But most working adults with fairly demanding jobs can manage 2 subjects per trimester, but it is personal. And that then would leave you 1 year, 1.5 years to complete the qualification.
Karen, there is a question from Leanne. Is there a remediation process if you have gaps in your portfolio submission?
Yeah, yes, there is. You are able to submit remedial evidence. However, what we've done in the process is we've kind of built it in beforehand. So in our FET sector, somebody hands in, they get assessed, we give them feedback, and then they're allowed to remediate. What we've done with the BBA process is before you actually submit your portfolio for assessment by the faculty, I will work with you to make sure that it is complete. So I've built in a one-on-one consultation session with each student to review their portfolio before submission. And by doing that, I'm hoping that we will catch any missing evidence before it actually goes to the faculty. And if there are gaps that the faculty still feels there are gaps in the evidence, then we'd rather arrange a one-on-one interview or a presentation to close those gaps rather than doing more submission of paper. Any other questions from anybody? Yeah, Tracy, I think that'll work best. Of a king. Okay, I just want to see your question. I was part of the cohort back in 2019. Yes, I remember. And I lost my job, so I couldn't continue with my studies, so I dropped out. And then there was 2020 and getting a job became harder. Can I need to reapply, or can I try the RPL route? You can't RPL for subjects that you've already failed. I don't know if there are any offhand, so Simon will be able to guide me there. But for other subjects which you haven't attempted yet, then absolutely yes, you could try the RPL route.
The subject you pass, you don't have to repeat.
Oh no, absolutely. Those you don't have to
Credit
repeat.
still
Thank you,
good.
Simon. Yeah, thank you, Simon. Yes, Laika, we're trying to make it personalized. We're not a big institution with 600 or 700 students, so we're able to do that. Thank you for that comment. Anybody else with any questions or observations? How does it sound, guys? Is it something you think you'd like to do? Okay. Well, if you do have any questions, you are able to just drop us an email. I've given you the email address here. It's bba@chartwell.coza, and either Simon or myself will get back to you and deal with any of your questions one-on-one. Alternatively, as Nolene has pointed out, thank you, Nolene, the forms, etc., are all on the website, so you can fill those in. Another question. I've done certificates with Chartwell in the past and was an easy and helpful process. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate that feedback. It certainly is very nice. And thank you, Laika. Yes, we like to have happy students. Thank you. Well, guys, if there are no other questions, thank you very much for joining me on this Saturday. I'm sorry about my internet issue in the beginning, but at least it managed to stay stable for the rest of the presentation. I hope to hear from you soon, and I certainly hope to see you in our RPL online classroom. Simon?
Yep. Thank you, everyone. I think I can see some more questions coming. Yeah, the presentation will be made available in the recording as well for today. And then, yeah, we'll post it on our, or under the blog. For those who have not read the blog, we have the blog for this session on our website. You can visit there and view the presentation, view the recording. We also encourage everyone to continue the engagement there as well on the blog. We have a section where you can ask questions, you can comment or give us some feedback. We can continue engaging, or the other alternative, we are also going to send you the presentation and the recording on the emails addresses that you provided to us. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, looking forward to enrolling you, all of you, into the BBA, and let's the discussion, as Karen says, we are open. If you want to have a one-on-one session that you feel maybe you need another session that before you can apply, we are also available to have that kind of conversation with you and see where it takes you, because we believe in RPL and we know most of us have so much of experience or learning out there and not formalized, but would love them to be formalized. So engage us. So even if it's not for BBA, we are here today because of Bachelor of Business Administration, but at Charter we have so many other qualifications that you can also be RPL for. So just let's continue with that conversation and we'll be able to assist you. All
Tracy's
right.
just raised her
Thank you.
hand. Oh, last question, Tracy. Yes. Tracy?
Sorry to do this just as you're about to conclude. Just one quick question on your RPL. In terms, I know that the session was specifically related to the BBA. RPL for other programs,
Yep.
those open, is that process open to persons under 25 but over 21? Or how does that?
So with RPL, for the vocational qualifications like management or whatever it happens to be,
yeah,
we're not as prescriptive. We do a pre-assessment to make sure that the person is genuinely an RPL candidate.
right.
Those qualifications are structured as unit standards. So
Perfect.
it could be that somebody could RPL for, I don't know, 10 of the unit standards, but then do formal training for the balance of the qualification.
All
So
right.
it's far more flexible with those qualifications. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you for that clarity.
Pleasure. Pleasure. Great.
Thank
Okay,
you,
well, if
everyone.
there's no last questions again, we can log off, and thank you very much again.
Lauren, thank you so much. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you,
Hope to see
Karen.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you
very much. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.